Hello, everybody, and welcome to our panel. We will start in a few minutes. We just see that we still have participants logging in. Welcome, everybody, to our joint panel, From Lockdowns to Exit Strategies, Safeguarding the Rights of Persons with Disabilities During COVID-19. This joint panel is hosted by the Permanent Mission of Hungary, the Permanent Mission of Israel, the Permanent Mission of Senegal, and the Permanent Mission of Thailand. To make sure that you also have closed captions, please look down at the toolbar at the bottom of your screen where you will see a closed caption button. Press on the small arrow that says that opens a menu and say show subtitles. That way you will have closed caption throughout the webinar. We also have sign language on the screen next to the screen of the panelists who will be talking. Thank you very much for joining us.
One moment. Shalom. Thank you everyone for joining this special event. My name is Odelia Fitoussi and I'm the Israeli candidate for the CRPD election in December 2020. I am the co-director of 32 organizations of persons with disability for the implementation of the CRPD in Israel, the founder and manager of OMETS, it's mean courage in Hebrew, for inclusion persons with disability in the society. And half a year ago, I was the chairperson of the Advisory Committee for Equal Rights Commission for People with Disability in the Ministry of Justice. This month, I'll be 43 years old, thanks God. I'm always glad to share my age, mostly because of the fact that I was born with SMA type 2, kind of muscle disease, and most of the doctors didn't expect that I'll make it past my second birthday. Of course, none of them could imagine that I will go to the university, live on my own, work as an art therapist and group facilitator, and become an activist in the fields which I mentioned before. Since childhood, and definitely as an adult and as an activist, my main focus has been dealing with the barriers and solutions for persons with disabilities. Today, in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis, the most global crisis in the modern times, there are serious questions arising about the meaning of being a person with disability. Are our rights and voices being heard through the mask? Are decisions made without us adopting patronizing approach for our own goods? In in reality, where 181 countries signed and ratified the CRPD, people with disabilities somehow, as professional survivors, still have to find creative ways to demand their needs and to cooperate with the society to improve their lives. Despite CRPD, people with disability still find themselves struggling for what is supposed to be obvious. In Corona times, where the balance between the power of government and human and civil rights is fragile, even more so. We have here today a wonderful panel of experts and activists representing different states, different continents, different cultures. I am honored to be in the panel with you to talk about the situation of persons with disability all over the world through the prism of COVID-19, what we experienced and what we learned. I will briefly present our participant, Mr. Yatma from Senegal, Ms. Saowalak Thongkuay from Thailand, and Mr. László Lovászy. So for the first step, as we would like to get to know our panelists, I would like to ask every panelist to present themselves and your work as an activist for equal rights for persons with disability.
Hello. First of all, thank you for inviting me to this very important panel, and it's my pleasure to take part in this work and discussion. And regarding my introduction, I'm László Lovászy from Hungary, and I have a PhD degree on disability-related legislation and policy. I'm currently serving my second and last term as a member of the CRPD committee, the position I have been holding since 2012. Before my election to the committee, I had various positions in government and international organizations. For example, I was a representative of the Committee on Rehabilitation and Integration of People with Disabilities at the Council of Europe. And after that, in 2009, I became the first disabled advisor to the first deaf member of the European Parliament. And during these activities, I started publishing articles and studies on ICTs and robotics, and as well as artificial intelligence related topics with special regard to disabilities perspectives. Last time I was one of the rapporteurs at the ILO conference on making the future of work inclusive of persons with disabilities, held last November in Geneva. Apart from these positions and experience, I'm also a senior research fellow of the Faculty of International Relations and Diplomacy at the National University of Public Service in Budapest, as well as an associate senior research fellow at the Social Future Center of Corvinus University of Budapest. Thank you.
Please, Mr. Paul.
Hi, hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm Yatma from Senegal, and I'm the president of the Senegalese Federation of the Organization of People with Disability. I'm an activist in the field of human rights, particularly human rights of persons with disability in Senegal, in Africa, and in all over the world since 30 years now. I'm currently a lecturer in the university, the Gaston Berger University, Saint-Louis in Senegal, for the program master on disability rights. Voilà, and I was a member of the UN ad hoc committee during the discussions for the convention related to disabled people's rights in the world. Thank you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes. Hello. Good morning, everyone. It is my honor to be here with you today and has an opportunity to discuss on a very hot topic, the inclusions of persons with disability in the COVID pandemics. I am Saowalak Thongkuay. I'm currently the executive board members of the Asia Pacific Development Centers on Disabilities, and also a founding members and a member of the steering committee of ASEAN Disability Forums. But I have a very long experience on disability and development in Asia Pacific since 2007 as the Regional Development Officer of Disabled People International. And I myself was not born with disabilities. I become disability by car accident. I'm very proud recently to be woman with disability. And then I love my job. I love to see people. I love to talk with people about human being and disability and development. Thank you.
So for the first step, so I would like to invite you first, Mr. Lovászy from Hungary, and you will speak about special education, the importance of modern assistive technology and ICT during COVID-19 and its mutual benefit for persons with and without disability. Please, Sivashen.
Thank you. Let's go to the second slide, please. I'm going to talk about three topics very briefly. And first of all, perhaps you already know the new publication of the UN dealing with disability inclusive response to COVID-19, and it was published this May from the UN High Commissioner Office. And within this brief, it's very important to recognize the crucial importance of accessibility, because please go to the third slide of the presentation. The issue of accessibility, because it's the backbone of the convention, as my friend and colleague expert in the community used to say, Damian Tajic and Mohamed Al-Tawarai from Serbia and Jordan. So the issue of accessibility is the backbone of the convention, and therefore and it leads to the conclusion that the importance of modern assistive technologies and ICT during COVID-19 remain crucial, because if we talk about personal challenges, the next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. Next one. Personal challenges. For my side, it was evident that we also had to postpone the session of the CRPD committee this March, and it also indicated that the change, the word change, and we also have to adapt to this change. And during my work, I also recognize lack of accessible information, even on business platforms and ICT solutions. And since the closure of schools become evident, many families face the challenges of handling the new educational challenges, and it means that we also have to deal with work, life, and education balance with children at home. And in relation to virtual meetings, so we also have to find out and recognize the new challenges and the best practices on virtual behaviors and virtual customs for handling meetings with persons with disabilities, persons with the hearing or communication disabilities in particular. And I personally found very difficult to contact general practitioners, doctors on phone only, because in the current health crisis, the quality and accessibility of consultation with doctors become very limited, and I think it is a general experience around the world. And for me, since I'm the first hard-of-hearing member of the UNCRPD committee, listening to people wearing masks become also difficult for me, because I usually rely on lip reading. And let's go to the next slide, please. When discussing exit strategies, I think the UN already issued recommendations for this purpose, and I think 3 areas can be identified for this activity, and it means that the policy brief I already mentioned deals with health institutional settings, support services, social protection and employment, education, prevention of response to violence and humanitarian context. And these actions cover all relevant challenges. And I would like to highlight at least 4 recommendations. Each and every one is about ensuring higher quality of accessibility, in particular accessible public health information, and in relation to this, I think state parties should be encouraged to provide relevant apps and online interpretation services for a person with disabilities. And I think the last issue I'm going to touch upon is whether we are in a special situation or not. Please go to the next slide, please. And I think it is high time to realize that whether what kind of possible benefits of COVID-19 can be recognized. I think 4 specific issues or areas could be mentioned: home office, home education, or standardization of e-education, supporting services, and finally, artificial intelligence for business people. And the last issue is the most interesting one, because I think artificial intelligence is not only for business people, but everyone. So I think in a nutshell, these issues could be relevant in terms of dealing with the challenges and recognizing the possible benefits of COVID-19 for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you. Start video.
Just 1 minute, Odelia.
Okay.
Great. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Lovászy. It was very, very interesting, and I will surely use from a lot of things from your information that you gave for us. I would like to invite now Mr. Fall from Senegal, and he will share with us about inclusion of persons with disabilities and political discourse during the crisis. S'il vous plaît.
Hello? You hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I would like to thank the initiators of this high-level panel dedicated to the inclusion of disability in response to COVID-19. Particularly, I would like to thank Permanent Missions of Senegal, my country, of course, Israel, Brazil, Thailand, and Hungary to the United Nations. I grade with respect my expert panelist colleagues, including people with disabilities, in decision-making and political discourse during the crisis is the subject which has been assigned to me, and tackling these times requires recalling certain on the right of persons with disabilities. In its fundamental principles, the conventions emphasize, among other things, non-discrimination, which essentially addresses discrimination against anyone because of their disability, recognizing that discrimination prevents people from enjoying their rights on an equal basis with the others. No discrimination is a much broader principle which includes the prohibition of discriminatory acts, the talking of mercy to protect oneself against potential discrimination, which is hidden in the future and with the aim of promoting equality. The two concepts of participation and inclusion mean that society is both its public and private dimensions, is organized to allow everyone
Mr. Fal, we lost connection.
Hello?
Okay, we can hear you good
Hello?
now.
Yes, my connection is not very good this morning. Yes, the two concepts of participation and inclusion mean that society is both its public and private dimensions is organized to allow everyone to participate fully. They mean that society and the stakeholders concerned recognize that people with disabilities and other participants have equal value. Participation includes active involvement in activities and decision-making process, the possibility of expressing options, influencing, and complaining when participation is refused. Inclusion requires access to a barrier-free physical and social environment that fosters acceptance and encourages society to open up and be accessible to people with disability. The principle of equal opportunities is closely linked to non-discrimination. It refers to a state in which the various systems of society and the environment are accessible to all, including people with disability. Equal opportunity does not mean treating everyone the same, which could lead to inequality. On the contrary, it recognizes the difference between individuals and ensures that despite this difference, everyone has the same chance of enjoying their rights. Article 11, situations of risk and humanitarian emergencies. Article 21, freedom of expression and opinion and access to information. And Article 29, participation in political and public life, specify these principles cited above and address the need to take disability into account in all circumstances and in all space. The coronavirus pandemic has surprised all of humanity with unprecedented health, social, and economic consequences. All over the world, public authorities are mobilizing in the search of solutions, the question that should be asked is what place should be reserved for people with disability in response strategy. With regard to the rights of persons with disability enshrined in the Convention, it is clear that as a constituent group of our society, they must be taken into account at all levels of intervention. And this implies that people with disability must be both actors and targets for protection. They must be involved in the design and implementation of this COVID response strategy. To do this, the institutional frameworks set up by the states must necessarily be inclusive. That is to say that people with disability have their place in public, national, or local bodies dealing with the pandemic to ensure that they are effectively taken into account. As targets of the discourse and action of public authorities too, disability must be taken into account. For example, integrate disability into communication using all access formats, making hospital and non-hospital care sites accessible, put people with disability in resilience programs, work with representative organizations of persons with disability to distribute fully accessible public health information, etc. However, achieving this inclusion in the design and implementation of COVID-19 response strategies also requires people with disability to prepare for it. These include enhance their technical skills, be offensive in their interactions with public institutions, develop strong alliance with other segments of civil society. In Senegal, for example, we have managed to take disability into account by using these different mechanisms. People with disabilities are represented on the National Committee for Monitoring Operations on COVID-19 set up by the President of the Republic. It is the same in the various departmental and regional committees in the country. Daily government communications on the pandemic are systematically interpreted in sign language. The same is true of the government's economic and social resilience plan, in which the concerns of people with disability are taken into account. These, ladies and gentlemen, are some truths that I would like to share with you. I renew my thanks to the organizers and remain available for any questions. Thank you very much.
Okay. Merci beaucoup, Mr. File. It was very interesting. Now is my turn. But before we start, I want to remind everybody that they can send some questions, and we will be happy to answer it by the Q&A chat. And I would like to speak about the value of life, safeguarding the lives of persons with disability, and the convention put into test during COVID-19. So as I shared with you at the beginning of this session, I was born with a muscle disease. And the fact is that medical books don't have scientific explanation for the fact that I'm still alive. This led me to deal with the concept of the value of life, since I can remember myself both in my head and in my heart. These times of world COVID-19 pandemic bring to surface questions that go to the core of our values. Sometimes it looks like we are all in the same boat. We are all locked up, afraid to be infected or infect others, afraid to get sick and even to die. But quite quickly, this period also sharpened the difference in perceptions of the different groups in society. In Israel, the law of equality for people with disability specifically states that it is based on the recognition of the principle of equality, the recognition of the value of the person created in God's image, and the principle of dignity. This law from 1998 changed the reality. It opened a wide and accessible door for many people. Many changes transpired since this law came into force and other legislations followed. Vast improvement in accessibility, a revolution in alternative for guardianship, and improvement in workplace equality. The law also established a commission for the right of persons with disability to both enforce existing law and represent the interests of people with disabilities to government. There has been quite a revolution in the way Israeli law regards people with disability and even in the way society regards people with disability. But that was all good and true for normal pre-corona days. The new situation, the emergency, the fear, the need to put people into different groups created situations that test the values of the convention and the values of human rights. During the last months, I have been very involved in the protest against draft position paper issued by a joint committee for the National Council of Bioethics for the Ministry of Health. According to that document, in situation of shortage of ventilator machine in the hospital, there will be a list of priorities regarding who should get a ventilator machine and who will basically be left to die. One of the criteria mentioned in the list was the physical functioning of the person. His everyday function, for example, if he's in a wheelchair like me or confined to bed. This has created an uproar within the person with disability community. Why should it matter if someone is in a wheelchair? How does that correlate directly with one's survival chance? How is it possible after such advancement in the past year, the government is considering a document that is so discriminatory to the point that consider the life of someone in a wheelchair as less worthy to save? The committee that wrote that paper cited articles and medical papers, but those were not strong enough to establish a direct connection between daily functionality and corona survival. Even the Association of Physical Rehabilitation Doctors published a strong objection to the document. More than that, other medical parameters which are well known as critical for survival were not taken as a factor as much as physical functionality. Other factors that also might have an effect were rightly disregarded in the criteria, such, for example, age and weight, or even gender. And of course they did. A 60 years old has much right to live as a 20 years old, and a fat person as much as a thin person, and a man as much as a woman. unless there is something about that particular specific person's condition at the hospital that make it specifically less likely to survive. If that is obvious for age and weight or gender, how it's possible that it's not obvious for people with disability? We persons with disability felt that the society turned backward, back to dark days, that we are going back to the medical model for the value of life for persons with disability, a model we thought that we have put in the trash where it belongs a long time ago. No person with disability organizations, not even our Commissioner for the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, were consulted when drafting this document. Because of our struggle, the Commission succeeded to meet with the chairperson of the committee. I was also part of one of the discussions, and our civil society rose up its voice, and there were some changes on this document. There is a new version now, softer one, but bottom line, there is still a functional factor, even if softer. And the value of life of persons with disability still count for less. We are still fighting to keep this paper at its form being adopted officially. Maybe it's too personal to share, but I really think that it's important to understand that in my life, even my medical situation was bad. I had doctors and families that didn't give up on me. Never. If during my life, people would have guided by statistic only, I would probably not be here today. As I told you, I was born with my disability, so I always felt blessed. I never felt that my life were lacking anything, but now I find myself hearing people that in certain situations, it's understandable that person with disability will be placed in the end of the line. It reminds me that when I took a flight last summer, it was important for the stewardess to inform me just 5 minutes before the flight that according to the policy, in a case of forced landing, I need to stay on my seat till everyone goes out first. So I wear my beautiful smile and I told her, it's okay, I'm not so strong in running, you have nothing to worry about. I remember how I kept thinking how she felt so natural and normal to tell me to my face that I was last on the list to survive. Crisis situation was a hidden truth. Another example of person with disability being disregarded during COVID time is the issue of institutionalization. I think this next issue is a global one, not an Israeli one. I really believe that Article 19, living in community, is one of the foundation stones for equal life for persons with disability, and the COVID-19 proved it in the most painful way. Persons with disability who live in nursing homes have more chance to be infected because lack of non-hygienic facilities, lack of caregivers, shared bedroom, and lack of supervision because of fixed and very limited visiting hours. In the period of COVID-19, isolation made things much worse for those people, as they are defined as population at risk. Visiting was cancelled. There was absolutely no alternative supervision. Even people that are healthy but limited in the daily function were not allowed to meet anyone but for months just because they lived in institution. This situation equalized disability to disease. As a result, for example, now employers are hesitant to bring back the workers who live in institutions, and the Commission with the civil organizations working very hard to change this perspective. To end, here are some conclusions from this story, and I'm sure the other panelists can share other similar stories too. The period of COVID-19 put all of us, persons with and without disability, in a fragile mode, challenge our priority in life, what is important for us, care, love, the safety of our families and loved ones. In our world, which is full of noise and distractions, one virus succeeds to test our basic values as human beings. If anything, this period proved that laws is not enough, that if laws and convention, even a great international convention like CRPD, is not matched by people understanding and accepting persons with disability as humans, then persons with disabilities' rights would always be a charity, an act of mercy, an addition that can be discarded as it is not equal to the interest of normal people. This quote from the convention, to ensure the full and equal enjoyment of all human rights, the will to promote respect for inherent dignity should be the mind and the heart, not just papers. That's why when I'm working to enlarge the amount of teachers with disability at schools, or when I'm talking with the election officers about my idea to teach the convention at schools, this is what I'm working on, the basic rights that make us all human beings, especially when we change the language from special needs to similar needs but different adjustment. To sum up, I believe that beside our rights that need to be obeyed and implemented for creating a real change, we have to think about ways to make people around us understand that persons with disability enrich the world, that the world is lacking of value without us. And as said by Winston Churchill, never waste a good crisis. The COVID-19 period needs to encourage us to work in this direction. And now I'm very, very happy to invite our last topic for today. The topic talk about the inclusion of the needs of women and children with disability in relief measures and exit strategy. You are most welcome to start, Ms. Thongkuay from Thailand.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Your presentation is really, powerful. I'm really, excited to hear from the first three presenters. Please allow me to open my presentations. Let's see. Share. Okay.
F5.
Yep. Thank you. I will start with the introduction to the administrations of the COVID-19 situations. The government set up the Center for the COVID-19 situation at the administrations as a special task force to perform a duty according to the emergency decree on the public administrations in emergency situations. Why I have to introduce the structure? Because I want all the audience to understand when I list the challenge cases, why do we have to include women and children with disability within the COVID-19 relief measures. Next, I want to introduce the Thailand healthcare systems. It is briefly introduce to the systems that you would understand that how the healthcare system work during the pandemic, the outbreak of the COVID-19. There are 899 the governmental hospital and 347 private hospital and almost 10,000 the governmental self-promotion hospitals plus 25,000 private clinics and 76 provincial health office and 878 district health office around Thailand. And also the universal healthcare is provided through 3 programs. The first is about the service, the welfare service system for civil servants and their family. The second is about social security for private employee, and the last one is universal healthcare streams. And the Ministry of Public Health oversee the national health policy and also operates most the government healthcare facilities. And also the National Health Security Office allocates funding to the universal coverage programs. And also there are the other health related the government agency supports the Ministry of the Public Health in terms of the implementing healthcare programs like Health System Research Institute, Thai Health Promotions Foundation, the National Health Commission's Office, and the Emergency Medical Institutes of Thailand. But however, the major source of success to control the pandemic, I mean the COVID outbreaks, are from 2 angles besides the medical staff. The first angle is the national health assemblies. Actually, there are 3 types of health assemblies. Which, the first one is the national level. The second one is area-based health assembly. The last one is the issue-based health assemblies. And also the other angle is village health volunteers. They are like now working together with the public volunteers, conducting the house-to-house visit to monitor the health community, the healthcare to the community residents. You know, while the medical staff are combating the COVID outbreaks on the front line. From the medical interventions or medical models, we jump into the economic and socio-economic support. The loyal Thai government introduced several measures to stimulate the country's economics in light of the outbreak COVID. The package of relief measures was adopted by the Ministry of Finance and approved by the Cabinet on the principle of timely, targeted, and temporary as necessary. The measure has been announced in 3 phases. The first phase is focusing on financial measures and tax reductions measures for individuals and the companies. The second measure is introducing the additional financial measures focusing on those outside the social security system. The measures include helping informal workers without social security benefits, including temporary employees and freelancers and businesses with soft loan and income tax payments. And the last measures is also a new set of the recovery measure focusing on healthcare sectors, affected individuals, SMEs, and the stabilizations of the financial markets. And additionally, the government, the cabinet approved the specific additional measures for the tourism business. The 3 socio-economic related measures include tourism, apply to all persons with disabilities. However, there is also still have the disability specific relief measures approved by the cabinet and take care or respond by the Ministry of Social Development and Human Securities. There are 4 specific measures for persons with disability. The first one is the cash transfer or cash one-time cash handout for 1,000 baht for person or allow $33 US. The second measure is about the debt moratoriums for 1 year starting from April. The third measure is about the increasing of the monthly disability allowance from 800 baht to 1,000 baht monthly. And also the last measure is about the loan. Persons with disability can apply for emergency loan maximum 10,000 baht for persons, or allow 10,000 baht for person, or allow like 600 or 300 US, with no guarantors and 0 interest. Then in summary, for the whole pictures of the COVID relief, there are 4 types of the COVID relief measure run by the government and also run by private sectors. Well, as you know that the government through the Ministry of Finance run 3 mainstream public measure through 3 phases, as I presented at the beginning, and also specific measure run by the Ministry of the Social Development and Human Security include disability specific measures and also condition cash transfers for 2,000 baht per person, or allow $66 US, subject to an evaluations by social worker, and offer to those in emergency needs such as milk for children or adult diaper for bedridden parents, for instance, and also apply for persons with disabilities who are in a very urgent need. And other measure is about like electricity and water supply. For 3% fee reductions and the extensions of the electricity bill payments with no interest, and the refunds of the electricity water usage deposit. And for the private sector, from the civic movement, they provide a lot of sanitary distributions and also food and drink distribution to those who are suffering from the government measure, like during lockdown, many people could not find income. They lost their job and they could not buy food, or they cannot access to the sanitary item like hand sensitization, soap, alcohol, surgical masks, or catheters, urine bag, or food coupon, happy bags, or plenty of sharing. This is picture to show you. Thank you for the Embassy of the Israel. They set up the pantry of caring in Thongkuay community in the cooperation with Human Development Foundation and Mercy Center as the celebrations of the friendship between people of Israel and people of Thailand to support children in vulnerable situations. Why? It seems that we have a very perfect relief measures, both medical intervention, medical prevention, and also socio-economic relief measure. Why we still have or urge the government and society to include women and children with disability needs in relief measures and in exit strategy. I think it is about the ethical questions, how to balance the medical models with social models. In the context of the emergencies, where human life and human dignity are threatened, the measure ethical questions will be in one way or the other, another's, transform our habits, practices, and theories. And then in COVID-19 pandemic has put every state, public health system, economies, societies, communities, and individuals under utmost pressures. It is time for the inclusions and fight against the growing incidents of racism and discriminations, and no one should be left behind. And it is also a strong incident that COVID responsives are condition measures. It is not universal and it is not accessible to all citizens. Let me example from the reality cases on the ground, which is happened not only Thailand, but it's happened in many countries. You know, from February until now, I received over 100 mobile phones from persons with disability in Thailand who ask for many things and report me the violence cases, and also receive over 100 of email around Asia Pacific and some parts of the regions, some parts of the continents, you know, sharing the case, the discrimination cases towards women and girls and persons with disability. Firstly, the pandemics clearly exposed the strengths and weaknesses of the healthcare systems in different countries, as well as the obstacles and inequalities of access to healthcare, such as women with disability cannot access to basic reproductive healthcare services as usual, since all healthcare resources take to prevent the pandemics. For instance, women with disability who use the catheters and urine bag could not find it, and they don't have money because of they lose the job. They don't have money to buy the urine bag and catheters, as it is, you know, costly and expensive. By the time of the pandemics, the vulnerable individuals become even more vulnerable in time of the pandemics. For example, female blind and deaf cannot earn incomes as their workplaces closed due to the lockdown policy, no cash, no food, no sanitary items. And the measures such as isolation, quarantine, physically distancing, lockdown policy impact heavily vulnerable persons such as female with severe impairments, lose her job, and later she committed suicide because she has, you know, to spend a lot of money to take care of her family and pay debt and other expenses, monthly expenses. An autistic child found dead at home while his father stays in the state isolation phase for the quarantines. Many children and women with disabilities suffer from domestic violence and abuse during the lockdown policy and work from home. Information issues by politicians, scientific authorities, and the media is, of course, timely, accurate, clearly, complete, and transparent, but not in other accessible formats. For example, in Braille, in sign language, in easy to read, and in local language. And the last but not least, the terrifying e-bully made through the digital technology towards vulnerable persons. For example, parents with her autistic child are prejudiced and face serious e-bully while they go to pick up food at the pantry, sharing 4 times. But the CCTV, record circulated through social media with no consent. And then the audience from the social media made the prejudice that they are bad persons. And how about exit strategies? Yes. How do we balance again medical model and social models? So decentralizations of authorities include participations and respect of wisdoms, and ethical consideration should be in a core concept of the any exit strategies. So incorporate international human rights treaty, economy, and social development strategy to improve the existing pandemics and disasters preparedness, include in emergency situation, short and long term recovery measures, and increase the participation, set up interdisciplinary dialogue among scientific, ethical, and political actors. Political decisions should be based on sound scientific and knowledge to avoid stigma and discord, but never legitimized by science alone. The allocations of resources and a strong public health system need to be paramount important in the government's agendas. And although the highest attainable standard of health is a fundamental right of every human being, which is the present context, access to the highest available healthcare is a must, and access to the highest healthcare is an ethical considerations beyond human rights to success, prosperity, and well-being of all citizens. And lastly, the digital technology can be a tool to monitor, anticipate, and influence over the people to follow up the spreading of the disease and the behavior of the human being. And this is resources that I bring you into attention and recommendation papers. I recommend you to go to the statements on the COVID-19 ethical considerations from a global perspective made by the UNESCO. Thank you very much and welcome all questions and recommendations, please.
Thank you very much, Ms. Thongkuay from Thailand. And now we have some questions. We don't have so much time, so we choose 3 questions. And feel free to answer all the panelists. So the first question is how to face the reductions of NGO resources as a result of this pandemic. There is somebody that would like to answer to this question? I will repeat. How to face the reduction of NGO resources as a result of this pandemic? I think that we need to open the speaker. Yes, okay.
Okay.
I would like to say something about it. I have some idea. Of course, the organization now are very lack of money because not so much donation from outside. And really, I really believe that the government need to see the organizations a part of the tools to keep everything good in this in the countries, to do the implementation of the rights, and to help them really to fight in this struggle of COVID-19 and also after, because without the organization, without the civil society, we will go much backward to times that we don't want to remember. I think that the government really need to give kind of support to these NGOs, and I'm calling from here also to ask the government to do so. Does anyone want to? You?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah, Saowalak from Bangkok. Yeah,
Excellent.
of course, it is the natures of the NGO or disabled people organizations of persons with disability. We don't have money. We are survivor. You know, during the lockdown, the lockdown policy, everything is shut down. But organizations of persons with disability are not shut down. Our activity, we are still, try our best effort to cooperate with the business sector to find the like medical supply on the sanitary item to distribute to our friend, our peer in city and then in the countryside as they need it, because we conduct the survey what kind of urgent or emergency needs. But we have found that the first emergency needs is about the healthcare, item or sanitary item like alcohol and gel. So we cooperate with the private sector, because the private sectors later they get the tax reduction return from the donation. Secondly, we partner with the organizations of persons with disability in remote area to find out the persons with disability who are in the most emergency situation, and then we transfer them to the other civil society organization which is take care of the particular issues. Like when we find women with disability who who are in the serious situation because they don't have money to buy food for their kids, and we send it to civil society organization who are expert on psychologists, support, for instance.
Thank you very much. There is another person want to refer to that question, or I think we will move to the next question, maybe. Do you have any predictions about what will happen with the field of employment of people with disability, and what are the needs in the new reality? Maybe Mr. Lovászy can answer this question. I think you have a lot of knowledge about employment and the situation. One moment, if we open the screen and the speaker.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So regarding the employment situation, I think it is very important to recognize that the current pandemic and the health crisis is an unprecedented situation, and it's very important to bear in mind. And the first step is to secure health-related challenges and problems, and it means that the global and national actions should be focused on helping people in hospitals and institutions. And when it comes to the employment, and I think the second step for governments and the international institutions is to secure and maintain the jobs in crisis, and it means that the governments and states are in a very challenging situation in terms of securing incomes of state budgets to maintain the level of public services in the midst of economic crisis. And when it comes to the a person with disabilities in terms of employment, I think the current situation I already referred to in my introduction notes or remarks, the so-called home office and electronic and online services could improve the wider recognition of reasonable accommodation for persons with disabilities, because many of existing online and virtual assistant supported services or ICT solutions are already available, not only for like a business person, but also persons with disabilities. And I think it is a good opportunity for let's say mankind to explore the further opportunities and possibilities of ICT solutions to improve the quality of work for persons with disabilities, because I think that would be the most beneficial outcome of this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lovászy. I want also a little bit to reply to that question. In Israel, the Commission made roundtable with persons with disabilities and organizations and employers and employees to see it and to find some solutions. And as an art therapist, I can say that even you can I can bring to do a therapy to a patient through the computer. Even I'm already 67 days inside house. It's forbidden for me to go outside because COVID-19, and I do everything by the computer, group managing or therapy. We need to move to the new world now, and I think this is the benefit of this period. I would like to refer the last question to Mr. Fal. I think you are the one that maybe can answer it. It was during your speech. What to do in public institutions when the law that determines exactly the roles of the institution does not allow creating social protections programs, even for this pandemic? It's also written on the side. Yes.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
Yeah,
you
pas
for
de quoi.
Thank you for this question. I think the all public institutions have to provide laws to take into account disability. I recall the article number 11 in the convention that person with disability must be taken in account in the humanitarian emergencies and in the situation risk. Then the pandemic crisis is an emergency situation that all all the public institutions must take into account disability. If not, the organization of person with disability now had to make how can I say it, to make advocacy or actions to push this institution to take into account people with disability. But in the principle, any public institution doesn't not take into account disability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fall. Does anyone want to say some words for the end, or Ms. Thongkuay, Ms. Lovászy, Ms. Fall? Is there something that you would like to say before we will finish? Okay, so Thongkuay and then Lovászy. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I think for closure, it is very important to highlight the existing possibility within the convention when it comes to the further cooperation on research and development for improving the quality of access of persons with disabilities to public services. And I would like to cite the Article 4 of the CRPD, which reads that to undertake or promote research and development of universal design goods, services, equipment, and facilities, we should require the minimum possible adaptation and at least cost to meet the specific needs of persons with disabilities. And within this article, there is another important aspect to bear in mind, which is to undertake or promote research and development of and to promote the availability of and the use of new technologies, including information and communication technologies. And I think the current pandemic could provide a good opportunity to accelerate this process. And as I noticed, in relation to international cooperation and efforts to find the vaccine against the COVID-19, I do hope that this spirit will drive international cooperation for achieving a higher level of ICT technology and the quality of ICT solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Thongkuay,
Yes.
please. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I still reaffirm that the ethical consideration is really important, and it is the foundations of the human being, and also the ethical considerations enshrined in the declarations of the universal human rights, that all human beings should be treated equally. So in terms of the pandemics, CRPD and the other human rights treaty are already recommended the step-by-step how to include persons with disability. However, what we have to break down and fight for is to the incidents, the show up of the incidents of increasing the stigmatization during the pandemic. So the way out is the ethical consideration should be applied in the all measures by incorporating with the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability and also the other human rights treaty to achieve no one left behind.
Thank you very much. Mr. Fal, do you have some sentence to the end? Some
Yes,
words?
thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you. Just to say how I'm happy to participate in this panel and recall what Lovászy said, that Article 4 in the CRPD, the state parties to the CRPD have essentially three obligations. The first is to respect. The second is to make the others respect the convention. And the more important is to achieve the right of persons with disability. And by achieving the state's parties must make measure, politic program, etc., to take into account persons with disability. And I think this panel was very, 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 very nice for us. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you all. I would just say some words in the end. I agree with all of you that what you said and everything was very interesting. Before we end this interesting event, I would like to thank to the people who helped make this event a reality, to Yaron Wax and Yuval Geva from the Israeli mission to the UN, to Edith Rosenzweig Abu from the Israeli Foreign Ministry too, to Adele for the caption first, from Caption First, who is transcript this event, and to Zachary Goldstein, who translated it to sign language. And last but not least, to all of the participants that shared with us from their knowledge, thought, and ideas. Thanks a lot for your time and questions, and I wish for all of us the best. Thank you very much.
Vă stop la clătan.